So you're in the market for some new mouse skates, and you've been looking around at what brands seem to be popular, and X-Raypad seems to be the popular choice. But looking through their vast catalog of different materials and skate shapes, you're probably feeling a little lost as to what skates you should buy for your use case. We've all been there, myself included, but since I've done in-depth reviews of every single X-Raypad skate they've released to date, I'd figure I'd make a buyer's guide, so to speak, to help anyone considering their skates to help you choose what skates will be best for you. There are also some unique limitations with some of X-Raypad skates which you should be considering as well, and we'll talk all about those in today's video. But before we get into it, if you enjoyed the video and want to see some more videos like this for other brands, be sure to leave a like on this video and get subscribed. And leave a comment down below and let me know what your favorite mouse skates are. I'm very interested to see what everyone's skates are, as there's a lot of really great options out there. I have a feeling I know what most of them are going to be, but I'd love to see what everyone's personal favorites are. But without further ado, let's get right into today's video. Now, before we dive in, I wanted to quickly give a breakdown of the speed of each of the X-Raypad skates. I'll talk more about each type and shape more in depth in a moment, but here is a rough guide to how each skate will perform. For dot skates ranging from fastest to slowest, it goes Meteorite Skates, regular Jades, Jade Airs, Obsidians, Obsidian Airs, Obsidian Pros, and Obsidian Air Pros. For donut skates, it goes regular Jade, Jade Air, Obsidian, Obsidian Air, and Obsidian Air Pro. And for full-size stock skates, it goes Jade, Jade Air, Obsidian, and Obsidian Air, but these will vary heavily depending on their surface area, as not all stock skates are the same size. So even though Obsidians are more controlled, on mice like the Ponage Stormbreaker, which have very small stock skates, they will feel a lot faster than a full-size set for a Viper V3 Pro, for example. Now that you have a rough idea of where each skate sits in terms of speed, let's talk about the different types of X-Raypad skates next. First, let's talk about the X-Raypad Jade skates. The Jade skates are the more standard X-Raypad skate, being a speed optimized skate made of 100% PTFE. You can think of these skates being similar to the skates that came with your mouse. The ones from X-Raypad are just made out of a pure PTFE material and are more speed optimized than most stock skates are. These are one of the more popular X-Raypad skates, as they're usable for all game types and they're compatible with all fabric pad types. They are technically usable on glass, but X-Raypad does make a better version of these skates that are much better optimized for hard pad usage, but I'll talk about those later on in this video. The only issue I've ever experienced with the Jade skates, so to speak, is that their reusability is quite poor, as the 100% PTFE material doesn't hold onto the adhesive layer very well, so if you try and remove the skate itself will peel away from the adhesive. But this issue is unique to the normal Jade skates, as every other X-Raypad skate has fantastic reusability. Next, we have the X-Raypad Obsidian skates. These are the most popular X-Raypad skate in my opinion. These ones are made out of hardened PTFE material, the same base material as the X-Raypad Jade skates. The PTFE has just been hardened. Now this gives the Obsidian skates a much more controlled feeling than the Jade, so these are a much more control focused skate, and they lack that speed you'd find on the Jade skates. This hardened PTFE material does have a work-in period for when they're going to be used on hard pads, so keep that in mind, and I will talk about this work-in process later on in this video. And just like the Jade skates, the Obsidian skates are usable for all game types, and they're also usable on all soft pad types, as well as being usable on hard pads like glass, unlike the Jade skates. The Obsidian skates have been my personal favorite skate for a very long time, as these skates perform amazingly in every single type of game, and they're also universal in terms of their mousepad compatibility, being usable with all types of soft pads and hard pads. The only issue, so to speak, with the Obsidian skates is that due to their hardened PTFE material, they do have a higher degree of audio feedback when they're used on hard pads like glass when compared to skates like the X-Raypad Jade skates. But X-Raypad has addressed this issue on the Obsidian Pro and Air series skates, which we'll talk more about in a moment. Next up, we have the Obsidian Pro skates. These are a very unique skate that are designed to be solely used on hard pads such as glass or ceramic. Unlike the Jade and Obsidian skates, which were made out of 100% PTFE and hardened PTFE respectively, the Obsidian Pros are made out of a very unique material, being made out of ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, or UHWMPE for short. This material has a much higher friction coefficient than PTFE or hardened PTFE does, and it's also extremely durable. This material is actually the most durable skate material you can find on the market, with the exception of glass, metal, and gem, but those skates cannot be used on hard pads, but UHWMPE UHWMPE can. Now this unique material, just like the Obsidian Skates material, does need to be worked in prior to using them on hard pads, so keep that in mind, and again I will go over how to work in these skates later on in this video. Now due to their unique material, these skates give a highly controlled glide on hard pads, and these are designed to heavily cut down on the speed you'll feel from these types of surfaces, but their high degree of control and their higher friction coefficient makes them unusable on fabric pads as they feel, for lack of a better word, sticky. So I would avoid using these skates on soft pads. Again, they are designed to be used only on hard pads like glass and ceramic. But if you feel like glass pads are too fast for you to control, the Obsidian Pros are perfect as they make the pad feel significantly more controllable, and again, due to their unique material, they have the longest lifespan when used on hard pads out of every single X-Raypad skate available on the market. And next up we have the Air series skates from X-Raypad, which consists of the X-Raypad Jade Air, Obsidian Air, and Obsidian Air Pro skates. These are upgraded versions of the original Jade, Obsidian, and Obsidian Pro skates I just talked about, all of which are still made out of their same material, 100% PTFE, hardened PTFE, and UHWMPE respectively. They've just had some color changes, and they all have an added layer of soft microporous polyurethane foam, or SMPF for short, applied between the skate and the base adhesive. Now this additional layer of foam may seem kinda weird, but it actually makes a massive difference in the way that these Air series skates perform compared to their non-air counterparts. The first big improvement from this foam layer is that it acts as a dissipating layer between the skate and the mouse's frame, heavily reducing the amount of physical friction that travels from the skate into the mouse, significantly reducing the level of audio feedback you'll hear from the Air skates compared to the non-air skates when they're used on hard pads such as glass or ceramic. The second improvement is that since the foam layer acts as a friction dissipator, not only is the audio feedback reduced, physical feedback is also reduced. So if you use a rougher surfaced hard pad or a rougher surfaced fabric pad, the Air series skates will feel much smoother and will have significantly less physical feedback than their non-air counterparts. And lastly, and arguably most importantly in my opinion, another massive benefit to this added SMPF layer is that it makes reusing all the Air series skates significantly easier than their non-air counterparts. And since this layer sits between the skate and the base adhesive layer, it also fixes the reusability problem I mentioned from the Jade Air skates, as the 100% PTFE material of the skate itself doesn't peel away from the SFPF layer like it did on the regular versions where it peeled away from the adhesive layer. So unlike the Jade skates I talked about earlier in this video, the Jade Air versions are 100% reusable and they have the same fantastic reusability as all the other Air series skates. Alright, and lastly we have the Meteorite dots. Now these are X-Raypad's only glass skate and the fastest skate available in their lineup, as I mentioned earlier. These skates are significantly faster than the Jade skates due to their glass material, and they technically have an infinite lifespan as the skate material is highly resistant to wear and tear, unlike PTFE, which wears quite quickly on some surfaces. Unfortunately though, these skates are very niche in terms of their usage, as due to their dot skate sizing and their shaping, they can only be used on hard firmness fabric pads, and they cannot be used on any soft or medium firmness fabric pads and any type of hard pad, as the glass material will get damaged by any surface equal or harder than the skates themselves. So while the Meteorite skates are the fastest skate that X-Raypad offers, and while they do perform very well on the pads they are compatible with, they're only usable with a few specific pad types with specific hardnesses, so the skates, while being faster than the Jade skates and of course the Obsidian skates, are a little too niche for my tastes, and I much prefer the Obsidian and Jade skates since they're much more universal in terms of their usage and don't have the nicheness of the Meteorite skates. Alright, well now that we've talked about all the various versions of the X-Raypad skates, let's talk about their available shapes next. Firstly, we're going to talk about full-size skates. Now, X-Raypad makes a wide range of full-size stock skates for most of the popular mice available on the market, from Logitech, Razer, Final Mouse, Ninjutsu, Lamzu, Pulsar, Zowie, and SteelSeries, to name a few. All the full-size skates primarily come in Jade and Obsidian versions. There are a handful of mice that have Obsidian Air sets too, but primarily all the full-size sets will come in Jade and Obsidian forms. So if you're looking to replace your mouse's current skate with a new set and don't want to bother with dots or donut skates, the full-size skates are going to be the best option. Just keep in mind that the Jade skates are a speed skate and the Obsidians are a more controlled skate, so be sure to pick whatever set fits your needs best. Next up we have X-Raypad dot skates, which there are a lot of options of. These skates come in the form of Jade, Jade Air, Obsidian, Obsidian Air, Obsidian Pro, Obsidian Air Pro, and Meteorite forms. Now the big advantage to dot skates is that due to their smaller surface area, they're much faster than full-size stock skates, and they're also fully balanced in their surface area, so as long as you use the same number of dots on both the top and the bottom of your mouse, the skates will feel balanced in terms of their friction, unlike some full-size stock skates that have differing surface areas on their top and bottom skates. Dot skates are also very universal in terms of their usage, so you can install them on pretty much every single mouse available on the market. Now each type of the X-Raypad dot skates has the same performance profiles as their other shapes, but keep in mind that since they're so small and have such a small surface area, even very controlled skates like the Obsidian dots will feel much faster than their full-size counterparts. Now there seems to be a lot of confusion about installing dots and how many you're supposed to use on a mouse. Personally speaking, what I've found to be best is that on smaller mice you should use around 4 to 8 dots, and on larger mice you should use around 6 to 12, but I wouldn't recommend using more than 12 dots on your mouse, as the more you use, the more diminishing returns you get in terms of performance. It's also very important that you use the same number of skates on both the top and the bottom of your mouse. It's also crucially important that you make sure you install the skates evenly and make sure that they're not going to be off-center, because that can affect the glide of your mouse. And one last note I wanted to make here regarding dots: just like the Meteorite dots I talked about earlier, due to the dot skate sizing and their smaller surface area, all of the X-Raypad dot skates are designed to be used on hard firmness fabric pads and hard pads such as glass. On soft pads, all the dot skates are too short and thin to account for the depth of that pad type, so the skates will sink too deeply into the pad, causing your mouse to bottom out. On some medium firmness pads, sometimes you can get away with using dots, but it will vary from manufacturer to manufacturer, but from my experience their compatibility on medium firmness pads is about 50-50, so make sure to use the dot skates on hard firmness fabric pads and hard pads like glass or ceramic pads. Alright, and lastly we have my personal favorite type of skates, the X-Raypad donut skates. Now these skates come in the form of Jade, Jade Air, Obsidian, Obsidian Air, and Obsidian Air Pros. Just like the dot skates I just talked about, all the various donut versions have the same performance profiles and materials as their other shapes, but since they're larger than dots but still smaller than full-size stock skates, they're slower than dots but they're much faster than the full-size skates, so they kind of have a middle ground to their performance. But I actually quite like how the donuts feel, as this middle ground-ish performance performs extremely well from my testing, so much so that the Obsidian and Obsidian Air donuts were actually my most used skate in 2024, as they just performed amazingly across the board. Now in regards to how many donuts you should use, due to their larger size, on smaller mice I'd recommend only using 4 to 6, and on larger mice I'd recommend using 6 to 8 donuts. And just like the dots, it's very important not to use too many donut skates, as the more you use, the more diminishing returns you'll get in terms of performance. And just like the dots, it's critical that you install the donuts evenly on the bottom of your mouse to ensure that your mouse's glide is consistent. But unlike dot skates, donut skates aren't as universal in terms of their usage, as due to their 9.5mm width, they aren't as universally compatible with mice as dot skates are, as they're too wide for some skate cutouts. So if you're considering donut skates, be sure to measure your skate cutouts on your mouse before you purchase them, and make sure your mouse's skate cutouts are at least 9.5mm wide. Anything smaller than that, the donuts will not fit there and you will have to use dot skates. Now another very unique feature to the donut skates is that they have this central dot skate. Now I've seen a lot of confusion about this central dot, as some people are convinced you need to remove them and others say you need to keep it installed, but in reality this central dot isn't like the other dots I already talked about in this video, as they're actually thinner than the outer donut skate itself, meaning that they don't impact the performance of the donut skate whether they're in or out in any way. Personally speaking, I removed this central donut so I can install the donut skate over the access channels in the base of my mice, just so it's easier for me to open the mouse without having to waste any skates. But removing or keeping the central dot installed on all of the X-Raypad donuts is completely up to personal preference, and they don't impact the performance in any way, shape, or form. And lastly, what is arguably the biggest feature of the donut skates is their mousepad compatibility. Since they're wider than dots and have a much larger surface area, every single X-Raypad donut skate skate is fully compatible with all fabric and hard pad types, regardless of their firmness. This is why I love the donut skates so much, and this is why they were my most used skate of 2024, because they don't have that unbalanced feeling that stock skates do, but they have the same universal mousepad compatibility, and of course they perform exceptionally well across the board. The only real downside to the donut skates is that, again, they're too wide to be installed on some mice. Hopefully we'll see X-Raypad make smaller donuts in the future to address this shortfall, but aside from that, the X-Raypad donut skates are my personal favorite type, and they perform exceptionally well across the board. Alright, and lastly I want to quickly talk about the work-in periods I mentioned earlier. Now, all versions of the Obsidian skates, either being normal, air, or pro versions, will need to be worked in prior to using them on hard pads. Now, this only applies for using these skates on hard pads. You do not need to work in these skates if you're going to use them on soft pads like fabric pads. This only applies to hard pads like glass pads or ceramic pads. Now, to work in the skates, simply install the skates on your preferred mouse, grab your preferred hard pad, and while pressing the mouse firmly into the pad, do large constant figure 8 motions for about 20 seconds. Once done, take a microfiber cloth and wipe off the skates and the pad itself, and test to see how the skates feel. If done correctly, you should notice that the skates will feel slightly slower than before. If the skates feel the same as before, repeat this process once again, but you should only need to do this process once. Alternatively, you can just let the skates work in naturally over time, but from my experience with all the X-Raypad skates that have a work-in period, it's best practice just to work them in manually, as they'll feel more consistent immediately, and you avoid that inconsistent feeling that the skates will have if you don't work them in beforehand. And just to reiterate, again, this only applies to the Obsidian skate lineups, which is the regular Obsidians, the Obsidian Air, and the Obsidian Pro skates of all shapes and sizes, and this only applies to when you're going to be using them on hard pads. And one last note for you all, X-Raypad skates are available pretty much everywhere. Here in NA, they're available on Lethal Gaming Gear and Potent Gaming, as well as a bunch of other retailers and other places as well, but they're also available on X-Raypad's website. Now, X-Raypad's website is based in China, but they also have a US store. However, on X-Raypad's own sites, all of their products generally are much cheaper than they are on third-party sites, as third-party sites will sell them for their full MSRP. On X-Raypad sites, they're often around 20 to 30, maybe even 40% off. So I'd recommend shopping around to different retailers to find what gives you the best price. Again, X-Raypad has their skates much cheaper, but again, you have to pay for shipping. Other retailers may be more expensive upfront, but may offer free shipping. So be sure to shop around and find whatever retailer gives you the best price for what you're looking for. Again, X-Raypad skates are available pretty much everywhere, so you can get them pretty much everywhere. But if you do end up ordering any of X-Raypad skates or anything else from either Lethal Gaming Gear or Potent Gaming up here in Canada, you can use code MELON with a 0 to help save yourself a little bit of money off your order to help cut down that MSRP price on those retailers. Alright, well that pretty much wraps up my little buyer's guide to the X-Raypad skate lineup. I hope the video was informative and helpful to you all. X-Raypad makes a lot of amazing skates, and I've used every single one of them as I mentioned earlier, and they've all performed really well for my testing with the exception of the Meteorites, but we don't talk about those. But if you're in the market for new skates, you can't go wrong picking any of X-Raypad skates, as they just make some fantastic skates across the board. And as a reminder, as I mentioned earlier, I have done full, much more in-depth reviews of each of these skates before here on the channel, so if you'd like to learn more about how a particular skate performs on different pad types and learn more about their materials and how the material interacts with different pad types and all that fun stuff, I will have links for all my previous skate reviews down in the video description and down in the comments for you. So if you'd like to learn more about a particular set of skates, for example, like my personal favorite set of skates, the Obsidian skates, you can check out those videos down below. But that's everything for my X-Raypad skate buyer's guide. If you have any questions about anything I didn't cover in this video, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer any questions you may have. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.